All right, it's a beautiful sunny day in Nashville. Boy, there's a lot to tell and a lot to share, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to take a minute and talk to you guys, share what I have by giving it away to you. I thought it might be fun to talk a little bit about if you're new in town, if you're thinking about coming to Nashville, what might be helpful to you, and if I can shorten the learning curve for you, that would be my goal. It took me years coming here and then moving here, and I still had a lot to learn. And I can tell you story after story about that. But what can I do to help you guys? I mean, what can I do to shorten that process? So let's say we'll call this thing, You've Got a Friend in Nashville, Ask Jeff. And hopefully that works for you. Maybe that'll answer some questions you've got. I know I had a bunch. I sure did. Okay, so you're new in town. You're here, you got a place to live. There's also the people that haven't gotten here yet, and let's start with that. You're from your hometown. You're doing great. You've got a great band, or you've got a great bunch of gigs. People tell you that you're amazing, you're the best thing that's happened since sliced bread, and they say, you should be in Nashville. Well, what do? And you can come here, you can drop your dishes and move here, and you might not be ready. You might want to do with this, which is what I did for 14 years before I got moved here, I guess, or something like that, 16 years, is come to town and go home with what you learned. Come to town with what you've been working on since then. Go back home with what you learned. Come to town again, and do that for a while. Make some visits here. They don't have to be, staying at the Ritz. You can just come here and, couch surf like I did. I did a lot of couches in spare bedrooms, and I did some hotels, but they were a lot cheaper back then. And get your feet wet, kind of go around. So if you're coming to town and you want to do your advanced work, advanced recon, here's what I suggest. And this also applies if you've just moved here. Go around to as many different places that have music as you can and get a vibe for what they all are. So that when somebody says 3rd and Lindsley, you go, oh yeah, I saw the Time Jumpers there, or I saw the Wooten Brothers there, or whoever's there that week. And you also get a vibe for who else is in town and how good the music is and how stiff the competition is in a lot of ways. Or let's just put it, how high the bar has been set. This is where the best people at everything come to live. LA, yes. New York, yes. Atlanta's got a thing. The Northwest has a thing. Minneapolis has a thing. Phoenix has a thing. Chicago has a thing. But here in Nashville, it's concentrated talent like I've never seen. And the water is really deep, and there's lots of room. As my friend Billy Williams said when I was getting ready to move from Phoenix, he said, good luck in Nashville, we'll hold your place in line for you back here. Because there are people that come down here and they move in and they get all settled and then they swim around for a while, and it's hard to find a branch to hang on to, and it's understandable. And they go back home and they might be back, you never know. So it works all sorts of ways. In fact, don't forget, when Garth Brooks got here the first time, he had a big send-off from his hometown, and everybody said, oh, you're going to be a star. And he got here and he got the you-know-what scared out of him, and he went back home with his tail between his legs and hid out for almost a week in shame that he hadn't stuck it out. Well, he came back to Nashville and, look what happened. There's a great story, by the way, of when he was new in town, brand new, and he was down at Douglas Corner, and a guy named Tony Arata, who I've met and played with, had written a song called The Dance. And Garth said to him that night, man, I love that song. If I ever get a record deal, I want to record that song. And look how that happened. That's how that song got pitched to Garth. One of his biggest songs ever. Come to town and figure out where everything is. Find out where the clubs are. Find out who's running the writers' nights. Talk to them, get to know them, but definitely don't do the hustle up their leg. Don't blow hot air. Don't sell them on your resume from back home. Don't go all resume on them, is what we say. And take a swing at getting up on the writers' nights if that's what you're doing. Find people that play music that you like and go hang out with them. Build yourself a little team. Okay, few things are, know your surroundings, build a team, and be part of the scene. Show up. I still do a lot of free shows, Commodore and the Maxwell House, and once in a while the Bluebird and things like that, because I want people to hear my material. I want them to know who I am. And that's part of what we do. So come to town, find yourself an inexpensive place to stay, do your advanced research, go home, develop it, write better songs. And we'll talk about that, about writing songs too, but this is just kind of the intro to Nashville thing. We're going to kind of keep this short and sweet if I can. Once you get settled here, if you do move here, don't believe that you've got to do a record deal right off the bat. Don't believe that you've got to go with some producer who says, hey, I can produce you for $3,500 a song and you can have, or even worse than that, and we'll have a record out and we'll take it to all the major labels. And what typically happens is you do a record and you got a trunk full of them and then you don't know what to do with them. And there are guys that make their living like that, and I understand that part of the business. But just be aware that there is that part of the business. Also, if you've got friends, if you build friendships here, again, that networking thing, build your team, build your tribe. And if you've got people here you can hang with and they've got something going on, say, hey, can I check it out? Can I, be a mouse in the corner? Can I just, sit in the background, fly on the wall kind of thing? You might end up writing with those people, and that never hurts, because the more you write, the more your network spreads. And I've done hundreds of shows around town over the years. I've been here 40 years writing songs. I've lived here 23 years, so I guess that's 17 years of visiting since '83. That's a long time. But it was really cool. And every time I went home to Phoenix, I was so inspired. I said, it's like breathing songwriting ether. You go out and you hear people play these places like the Bluebird, and back then you could get into the Bluebird really easily. And I'd hear people playing amazing songs. I remember one night at the Bluebird years ago, John Prine was there and he was playing his new song, Let's Talk Dirty in Hawaiian. Lay your coconuts on my tiki. It was so cool to be around that stuff. And to have the advice of people like when Merlin Littlefield was at ASCAP and he got up on stage at the Bluebird one night and he said, I'm going to interrupt the show to let you know that there's a real emergency in Congress and we've got something that songwriters need to gather together and protect our rights from. And it was a move to lower songwriting royalties, one of those things that happen over and over. But that's where you get a chance to find out who people are. And some of the first people I met in town went from that little teeny job they had back then to a great big job. And some of them are even retired. They're doing so well. But show up and let your face be known. One of the cool things I learned a long time ago is that it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Look at me, I'm all blue and white today. I got the blue and white Honu turtle on the Hawaii Cup. White Carter vintage hat, got a little Floribama swag on. It's so cool being here, and I've been here 23 years, as I mentioned, and it's still the best move I ever made career-wise. And if there's anything, here's what I want you to do. Down below this thing, you can put comments. Please put comments in there. Ask questions. Hey, if I do this, or is this part of town a good part of town? Or what about these places? What about these people? And I'll give you what I can in fairness and being respectful of others. I'm not going to bash people either, because that's just not me. I'm not that guy. But when you get here, again, the same principles apply. Get yourself a network, build your tribe, start writing with those people, move with the pack, swim with the school of fish. A lot of times you'll find out that some of those fish are getting somewhere. We had a thing back years ago, in fact, it was about 2002, 3, 4, 5 in there, where there were a lot of people that were I was the common ground. I was writing with all of them, and I saw myself as the hub and the wheel. And so we put something together called the Writer Posse, and it was a great bunch of people, and so much talent. The guys from Love and Theft were part of our family friends, and King Billy, Charlie Warsham is a great example of the guitar player in King Billy. They were just a band here. They were trying to get, Charlie's a big deal now. And I'm really proud of him. And I love running into him and stuff. And Josh Matheny was in that band. And Josh has now played on, I think 15 #1 records on his dobro. He's just a great guy, great artist, great friend. So you move with your pack, and being known as being part of that group. They remember the early days of Big and Rich. They had a thing called what was it called? Oh gosh, it was down there at the Pub of Love on 12th, just off of Broadway, and they had their thing. They had their posse, and one of the people that was in that group early on was Sarah Darling, and she was one of my co-writers, and we both ended up signing with Black River some years later. But Sarah was the mannequin in the video for Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy, the girl that's just sitting there frozen. There's a phone call. I hope it's a good one. I'll be right back. Well, that was a call that was definitely worth it, so thanks for calling. Let's see, something else I thought of is, where do you live when you move here? There are apartments. The best thing to do, I think, is to cut your expenses at all costs. There's no pun intended with that. But to find people that you can room with, if you know somebody from your visits here, you're doing your advanced recon, as I mentioned, you might have a place where you can pick up, they're going to go move. They're out of their old apartment. They want a new roommate or two to help defray the cost, so you do that. Definitely don't blow your life savings on a house in Brentwood, because you will go broke doing that. I mean, I know from even working a full-time career that it's expensive, and it's more expensive now in town than it's ever been. Here's something else to think about. Whatever you're paying for rent, wherever you live, double it here, because that's what it's going to cost you. One of my friends lives in Gulf Shores, and she just told me that her rent for this beautiful one-bedroom, tall ceilings, marble floors, private patio out to the ground level, out to a little garden area, big bushes behind it, nobody can see you, with all utilities except expenses for electric, is $1,300 a month. I mean, I'd move out of my place if there was something like that here, because it's so clean and it's so efficient and it's just huge, and it's got a washer dryer in the unit. Well, you'll be lucky to even find an apartment for under $2,000 here right now. I hope you get lucky. But it's also where you got to move to and what part of town you want to be in. What I hear a lot of people doing when they move here is they move to East Nashville, which is still semi-affordable. They move up to Hendersonville. They're in Hermitage or even Mount Juliet. I live in Donaldson, which is an area in between downtown Nashville and Hermitage. It's about halfway between the airport and Opryland, and it's really a convenient area. If you can get into Donaldson with something reasonable, they're putting up lots of new apartment buildings and things like that, and there are a lot of old homes that come up for rent. But what I could get for $800 a month when I first moved here to this neighborhood about 11, 12 years ago would cost twice that, 3 times that today. It's just crazy how much rents have gone up. So I encourage you guys to, find a cheap alternative to living here. And that way you can last longer. If you save your money and you've got a little budget for how long you want to be here, and all that, man, come on into town. I hope there are some things in what I've shared that'll help you a little bit and maybe offer you some insights and offer you some hope. And, let me know if you got any questions. Again, put them in the comments down below. We'll talk some more about country guitar and some of the things I've learned, especially what I learned from Glenn Campbell. That lick at the top, that's a Jerry Reed lick that Glenn used for Southern Nights. Glenn took things from all sorts of people. Like, he has a famous lick in his guitar solos, if you listen to his stuff, that is, it was from Howard Roberts in the Wrecking Crew. Anyway, we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about the clubs to go to. Oh, let me just give you that right now, as a matter of fact. If you come to town and you want to check out where the best people are, if you can get into the Bluebird, go there. Go to the listening room. Go to the free places like the Commodore and the Maxwell House. Third and Lindsley is a great showcase club. Every Monday night, usually, Vince Gill and the Time Jumpers. Vince may not be there if he's out touring with the Eagles or doing whatever. Great band, though, and they always have good people. And there are things there Saturday afternoons called Nashville Backstage. It's a huge show. Pretty much everything's $20 these days, though, so you're going to have to spend a little money. But Come on, check it out. Parking downtown is really expensive. It's usually $20 to $40 for anywhere you park, unless you want to walk a long ways. So what I do is sometimes if I'm going downtown for something and it's nighttime, I'll take an Uber from my house. And that way I'm not paying for parking and I'm not struggling with how to park and where to park. And then the only hassle is if you've got to catch an Uber back home, sometimes it's really busy on Broadway. But that's probably the easiest way to get to Broadway, is just take an Uber. Broadway is packed. That's another thing. You should go down there and take it from 5th all the way down to the river. And there are spurs that come off the other ways, and the listening room is down in that area. And Printer's Alley is up there. There's 2nd Avenue where the Wild Horse and all those places are. And all the bars on Broadway are usually 2 or 3 stories. They've got a band in the main room. They might have another band way in the back and have a band on the 2nd floor. And if they've got a rooftop, they probably got somebody up there too. So they'll stuff entertainers anywhere they can. And there is music from 10 in the morning. It's usually 10 to 2, 2 to 6, and then 6 to 10:30, 10. And then they have kind of a long turnover, and then they go to 2:30 in the morning. And that's what happens on Broadway 7 days a week. It's a zoo. You got to see it to have experience. You ain't lived till you've been on Broadway. And kind of like they used to say, you ain't lived till you've been 86 from the Bama. So come to town, check it out. See where you fit in. You will be blown away with the amount of talent that's playing for tips down on Broadway. Some of the best musicians. Guys come off the road. There's little pop-up shows, where Dierks Bentley or Blake Shelton or anybody like that will pop up on their own stage, and they've got the club, and Alan Jackson's got AJ's Good Time Bar, and there's all of that. Reba's got a club here now, I think, and I haven't been to it yet. And there are good museums to see. There's the Glenn Campbell Museum, there's the Musicians Hall of Fame, there's also the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, which is the world's only accredited music museum that I've been told. And in fact, that's what they said. Their executive director, Kyle, told me that one time. And they're just walking around, and join in with the millions of tourists. When you've lived here long enough, Broadway, and that is a good place if you can get some work down there, but it's not where we hang out. We're going to be hanging out at each other's houses, at publishing companies. We'll get to that. That's a long shot these days, but good luck with it, and I wish you well, and I'll try to help you get there. Well, again, appreciate you listening in. You've got a friend in Nashville. Ask Jeff. We'll see you for episode 2. Thanks, and please subscribe.